All right, guys. First up, as always, good day. So this is the second half of the um, extra credit assignment. Okay, so just like I said in the first video, if you do not give good responses, you just put like a one word answer, or you're not staying with the topic, you will not get the point because again, this is extra credit. Okay, I don't necessarily have to give you just because you wrote two words down, give you full credit for it. No, 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 no. No, this is extra credit. Okay, so be sure you actually answer the questions. Okay. So we're gonna go look at the 1920s and 30s mobsters and the Depression era thieves. Now, here's the thing, though. This is in no way, in form, any which way, glorifying these people or anything like that. But the thing is, this is a time when organized crime grew. This is a time when people were desperate, during the time of the Great Depression, to get money and things like that. So people broke the law. Now the thing is, the mobsters made money because of prohibition when alcohol was illegal, and they started really making money because people wanted to drink. That's how they made their money. The Depression era people straight up robbed places, banks, stores, whatever, you know. So you're going to see in this video who these people were and basically what happened to them. Okay. So let's go ahead and get started with two of the biggest people in crime at this time, which was Al Capone, aka Big Al, aka Scarface. Yes, you heard me right. If you did not know, the original Scarface is Al Capone. He got it in a fight. I believe, if I remember right, it was a beer bottle. He got cut in the face right here. And if you look in his mugshot, you can see the scar on his face. Um, he was born in 1899. He died in 1947. He was known as the unofficial King of Chicago. Okay, he ran that city. He basically controlled the cop, politicians, the mayor, I mean, police, everybody. It was really frightening how well connected he was in Chicago. Um, he was charged with, running gambling, prostitution, bootlegging, racketeering, intimidation, murder. Intimidation, what he would do is have people outside the voting place and basically be like, who are you voting for? Oh, I'm going to vote for this person. Nah, man, you should really think about this person, you know, and they would basically threaten people with their lives. Like, you should really vote for this person, you know, because they wanted certain people to be in office. Because again, that's what Capone wanted. He famously said prohibition had made nothing but trouble. And he's right. Because of the alcohol was illegal now, the mafia started making money like crazy because again, people wanted to drink. And in the United States, it was illegal. That's what prohibition means. And he said it correctly. It has caused nothing but trouble. You know. Now he was caught by Elliot Ness. Now this is a thing that's happened throughout the years. People tend to forget like who Elliot Ness was. He was not an FBI agent. He was a member of the Treasury Department. Okay. Now he had a group of these people he called the Untouchables. Well, I should say my media called them the Untouchables. Not because these guys were good fighters and things like that. They were dodging bullets. No, 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 nothing like that. They were called the Untouchables because they couldn't be bribed. Where in Chicago, cops, lawyers and politicians could easily be bought, judges. These cops he gathered could not. They could not be intimidated. They could not be bought out. That's why they're nicknamed the Untouchables. Did some of them get killed? Yeah, but the, it's not because they were like supermen, dodging bullets and some of that. Nothing like that. Now, here's the thing with all these charges you see gambling, prostitution, bootlegging, racketeering, murder they couldn't pin anything on him. The way that the Treasury Department got Capone was they charged him with tax evasion, right? He's living in the penthouse of um, this building, this hotel, right? And apparently he's not making any money. On the records, he's not making any money. So it's like, how is he able to own this penthouse? How is he paying for it? How is he making his money for this company that's supposedly legitimate and things like that? He never gave himself an income, and then he was living way above his means. He was always dressing in the nice clothing. He was always out there in the media, just look at me, different. So that kind of flashiness really got him in trouble, because he was always out there. He's always in new suits and new cars, things like that. So it's like, well, where did he get the money for this? And that's how the government got him. And there's no way they could say, oh, he's not guilty. No, he's guilty. A man who makes no money and yet living so well, guilty. So later in life, he does die from syphilis, but yeah. So that's Al Capone in a nutshell. The next guy is basically a 180 of Capone. Capone was very flashy. He was in the media. He was out there. This guy, Charles Lucky Luciano, was not. Luciano was born in 1897. He died in 1962. He is the man who truly organized the mafia and the crime syndicate. This guy, the one you see on the bottom with the lazy eye, he is why the mafia became as big as it was. All right, he was a member of the 5 Point Gang, and he had people like Meyer Lansky and Bugsy Siegel, who you're going to learn about later on, in his group. And these guys were no pushovers. So the thing is, after several murders, Masseria and Marzano, and then there was a foiled assassination attempt on him, he became the top New York mafia boss. Okay. Now, what happened was with all this chaos, these guys fighting each other and things like that, he's like, okay, look at. We need to come together. Because when we're fighting each other, we're making life difficult for one another, right? We're making life difficult for one another. Things are not getting done. We're constantly watching our backs and things like that. But if we come together, iron out some rules, if there's an issue, we come together, we negotiate, we talk like men. We don't shoot each other on the streets and stuff like that. We don't, you know, make our business public. We keep it on the down low. Things will work out for all of us. So basically, he stabilized the power between the five families, and they all took their name from the last name of the boss: the Genovese, Profassi, um, Bonanno, Gambino, and Luciano. Okay. Now, the thing is, he did get all the bosses together. Even Al Capone, who, remember, he's in charge of the New York syndicate. Even people like Al Capone, who was in Chicago, he was able to get them together and say, we need to work together. We need to communicate. We need to, if there's a problem, we should get together and stuff like that. This group of all the mafia bosses became known as the Commission. Okay. Now, here's the thing. Luciano, even though he was really good, kept in the quiet, kept secret, things like that, he was known by the police as the guy who's in charge of all this. And he was arrested for prostitution. Okay, that he was operating a prostitution ring. Now, in court, he was asked how a person making $22,500 a year could live so well and keep a permanent room at the Waldorf Astoria, which is a very famous hotel. And they're like, you basically bought out that room. They should be making so much money every day. It's going to cost you more than $22,000. And yet somehow you are able to pay for that room and then live so well. Because again, he, unlike Capone, who was like, I'm making no money, he's like, yeah, I'm making this much money, things like that. So he did pay his taxes, stuff like that. He did not want to be in the limelight. He wanted to be in the shadows as much as possible. Okay, but even then, when he was arrested, in charge, and was in jail, he still ran things in prison. And if you get to the World War II video, um, you'll hear about that too, how he helped out the U.S. in World War II. All right, so we talked about two of the bigger mafia people. Now we're going to talk about two of the Great Depression era people. Number one, hands down, is John Herbert Dillinger. Okay, he's known, aka, as Public Enemy number one. He's the first guy in our country, the FBI top 10 list. He is the first guy to be number one. When they made that list, they first created it. They put him number one. He's also known as the Jackrabbit because he could not be held down. They could not catch him. He was always moving. He was born in 1903 and died in 1934. He and his gang robbed 24 banks. They robbed 4 police stations. He escaped out of jail by making a gun out of soap. Yeah, and the guard thought it was a real gun, and he was able to get out. He was charged with assault and battery with intent to rob and conspiracy to commit felony. All right, so he was always on the run from the cops and stuff like that. He did meet up with several famous other people, um, but the thing is, he was like Mr. Untouchable. Really, he could not be caught. But eventually, he was caught. The cops got this lady. They call her the Lady in Red, but even though her dress was, I believe, was orange, the famous thing is the Lady in Red. She was the signal that he's right here. I'm with him. And so he was shot by Melvin Purvis, who was a member of the FBI, the newly formed FBI, the G-Men, and Samuel P. Cowell. He was shot in the face. Uh, and there's actually a movie about him starring Johnny Depp. It's called Public Enemy. So, do you want to watch that movie? There you go. The next couple is one that is synonymous with like Romeo and Juliet. Bonnie Parker and Clyde Champion Barrow. Okay, aka Bonnie and Clyde, which you see in that picture to the side there. Here's the thing. This is one of those things that people either don't know or just they heard about it and they don't remember it. But Bonnie was actually married, but she wasn't married to Clyde. She was married to a guy who was in jail. Okay, but the thing is, she met Clyde. They fell in love, um, and they went on their spree together. They were suspected in 13 murders, orchestrated a prison escape to get this one guy out of prison, and robbed numerous places. I mean, they robbed gas stations, restaurants, small banks, things like that. But mainly they focused in the South, Texas, Oklahoma, New Mexico, Missouri, places like that. Now, the way they died was they were in their car, uh, and the FBI and the Texas Rangers and all of them, they were waiting for them. And as soon as they came down the road, they just opened fire and just killed them. Just unloaded their guns, and both were killed on May 23rd, 1934. Bonnie was only 19 years old and Clyde was only 21. Now, here's the thing: when they were shot up and their bodies were, I think it was Clyde's hand was like dragging, because he was, I guess, trying to get out the door, and it was just dragging down the road, stuff like that, until the car stopped. People would come and they would try to take like pieces of the clothing of Bonnie and Clyde and things like that. The car is actually, last time I saw it was in display in Vegas, in the Prim Valley, one of the Prim Valley casinos. Um, when I was younger, you could actually like kind of reach over and kind of touch it a little bit. It's pretty cool. Um, but nowadays, I believe they have it encased. You can't really touch it anymore. But yeah. It's last time I checked, which was about 5 years ago, it was still there in the Prim Valley. So if you have a chance, you may want to check that out. Next, we're going to talk about some more two Depression era thieves and one mafia guy. The first one is Charles Arthur Floyd, aka Pretty Boy Floyd. Born in 1904, died in 1934. He was a bank robber in several states, mainly in the West and Central states. He too was shot by Melvin Purvis at East Liverpool, Ohio. Okay, Purvis also shot John Dillinger. Okay, now the thing is, Pretty Boy Floyd was known for doing all kinds of horrible things, but the thing is, his last words were he denied shooting 4 cops in Kansas City. Okay, and that's the thing. It's like he was like, I didn't do that. Of all the stuff, yeah, but that I didn't kill the cops. But again, because the people were well known and stuff like that, times when there were crimes like that, they would just say, "Oh, it was probably more likely him," because he was in that area. The next guy you see with the fedora hat, that is George Kelly Barnes, aka Machine Gun Kelly. This is the real Machine Gun Kelly, not that little rapper guy. No, that guy sucks. This is the real dude. 1895 to 1954. He was a Depression era gangster too. Now, the thing is about him is he's actually the only big name Depression era thief who survived old age. Everyone else died young. You know, Bonnie and Clyde. John Dillinger. You're gonna learn about other guys too. Babyface Nelson. They all died a young age. Machine Gun Kelly is the only one who was captured without being killed. Okay, he was a bootlegger, bank robber, and a kidnapper. Okay, he kidnapped a rich man's kid. I believe it was kid or wife, one of the two, in Oklahoma. But the thing is, he was caught, and again, he's the only one who lived to be in old age. He was actually, if I remember right, he was in Alcatraz for a while. Okay, the next guy below, that is Arthur Simon Flegenheimer, but he's more known as his nickname, Dutch Schultz. Okay. Born 1902, died in 1935 from New York. Now, the thing is, he made his money from bootlegging. Again, alcohol is illegal, and he made a lot of his money through that, and mainly illegal gambling rackets called the Numbers. Now, here's the thing. He, Luciano, and another guy we're going to talk about a little bit later, Bumpy Johnson, and Madame St. Clary, they were in this little incident, right? And the thing is, Dutch Schultz was more like, I don't care, I'm about myself. And the thing is, that's not what you do when you're talking to people like Lucky Luciano. You don't say, I'm going to do my thing and I don't care what you guys do. Don't step up to me. Because again, Luciano controls it all, basically. So he was murdered in the heart by this group called Murder Inc. It's a murder for hire group for the mafia. He was shot in the restroom. But the thing is, he got shot several times, but he didn't want to die in the restroom. He's like, I'm not dying here. So he picked himself up and he made his way to the table where he was eating and having a drink, and he just collapsed right there and then. He would die a short time later, but he was like, I'm not going to die in a restroom. That's like the worst place you could die. So, all right. So here's your first question. If you were one of those bosses, like Capone, Luciano, how do you think you would be? Do you think you would be more the flashy person like Capone, talking to the press, dressing all nice, going to places, just, basically letting people know I'm here, Or do you think you would be more like a Luciano, quiet, hey, don't drive those, you know, big, fancy, beautiful looking cars, driving, around, wearing nice clothes, yeah, but not like, look at me, everyone, look at me type of thing. So where do you think you would fall under? Okay. And why do you think this? Knowing who you are and how you are, back yourself up with some facts, you know. Now, the second question basically asks you, which way do you think is smarter way to go? Do you think it's smarter to be flashy, to be out there? Because some people have two school of thoughts on this. Excuse me. Some people say, hey, it's good to be flashy out there because you're in the public eye, people see you, things like that. Um, you know, Whereas if you're quiet, something happens to you, someone does something, you're just an average Joe. It doesn't come out till later that who you were. Um, but on the flip side, you can get more done. It's when you're flashy and stuff like that, there's people around, things like that. So people crowd up and things like that. So it might be easier access to you as opposed to somebody who's quiet. Yeah, you would have to know who that person is in order to do something with them, do something to them. So which one do you think is smarter way? Flashy or quiet? Tell me why you believe this. All right, so the next person we're going to talk about is Vito Genovese, which is also known as Don Vitone. Okay, he was born in 1897, died in 1969. He was an enforcer for the mafia, which means he was a person who hurt people. He made sure people paid their money, paid their bills, things like that, whatever was owed to them. So he was the muscle, in other words. And he was a childhood friend of Lucky Luciano. So when Luciano was starting to come up, he was like, dude, Vito was the man, you know. So he used him. And he played a large role in the Calamarzi War that happened, which was I was telling you about um, the murders that were happening. Um, when that all that fighting was going on before Luciano took over, he played a role in like doing hits on people and things like that. Now he was arrested for an operating in the black market ring, and the thing is, he was found guilty and he died in prison. But he was still a big name. The Genovese name was still big even after he died. The next guy you see to the side, that is Benjamin Bugsy Siegel, aka Benny, aka Bugs, or Bugsy. Okay. Born 1906 through 1947, he was at one point one of the most infamous and famous gangsters of his day. Now, I'm sure you're thinking, oh, well, why was he? Why was he more bigger than Capone and stuff like that? Well, because the thing is, he went to Hollywood and he was rubbing elbows with some of the biggest stars at the time. And you have to remember, at the time, they're making movies during the Great Depression era of like the Public Enemy movie, the one with James Cagney. If you saw the uh, extra credit video before, so Hollywood is having a fascination with the mafia and these gangsters, and here is this real life gangster who's rubbing elbows with them. So yeah, people started really to know who Bugsy Siegel was. Now, he was one of the people who really pushed to get the Las Vegas Strip going, okay, into what we have it today, where people can go and gamble and things like that, and drink and do all that kind of stuff. He's one of those people who said, we need to get casinos out there. We need to get this going out there. Um, and like I said, when he was in Hollywood, he was a celebrity. People took pictures of him. So being that flashiness, that flashy attitude, he really lived it up. Now, problem was he was too big for himself. The mafia didn't like that. They didn't like that he was out there too much, and he was, look at me, look what I'm doing. This and that. Yes, I'm a gangster. I'm a thug. I'm part of this mafia stuff. And they're like, you need to shut up, But he was still doing his thing, and he was assassinated in his girlfriend's apartment in Beverly Hills in 1947. So Now, the guy you see in the background, that is Lester George Gillis. And I'm sure you're like, well, who is he? Why do I care about him? Well, you might know him by his other names, George Nelson, Jimmy, or more famously, Babyface Nelson. Okay. Now, as you can tell from that picture, you can see he looks very young, and that's where the nickname Babyface came from. He was born in 1908 and died in 1934. He was one of those Depression era thieves who got killed young. Now, he was first arrested at the age of 12 for accidentally shooting his friend with a pistol he found. The story goes he found the pistol, well, him and the friend, and they were just like looking at it, playing around, things like that. Oh, look at me. And he accidentally shot his friend. Okay. Still, he went to jail. But later on, he became a notorious bank robber and a murderer. You know, he even robbed the mayor of Chicago's wife. That was one of his claim to fames, which is kind of like, dude, really? He's like, yeah, he did. Now the thing is, he hated the name Babyface Nelson. He hated it. You want to call him George Nelson? Fine. You want to call him Jimmy? Fine. Call him by his real name. Fine if you have to. Jeez, he didn't like it. But he hated the nickname Babyface in his real name. He really hated Babyface. And there are times where some people, it's said that they would say his name, like, hey, Babyface, and he would just like pop off and just like start wanting to attack, and things like that. So yeah, he really hated it. But the thing is, once Dillinger died, John Dillinger died, um, George Nelson became public enemy number one. So he was seen as the biggest threat to our country after John Dillinger. And he was shot and killed by some FBI agents at a shootout. I believe it was in the woods, if I remember right, or some like forest looking area. But thing is, he was hit 17 times, you know. So, yeah. Now, I asked that question earlier about which is better to be flashy or quiet. This next guy is truly one of the most background people. You probably never heard of him, but he was one of the best mafia guys for the longest time. His name is Meyer Lansky. He was born in 1902 and he lived up until 1983. I mean, for a mafia person, especially at that time, that was unheard of. Because most of them died in the 40s, 50s, 60s. This guy lasted longer than any of them. He was known as the mob's accountant. Okay, he was smart, extremely smart. He was also very ruthless, and he conducted business in the shadows. He knew the best way to get things done was to be as little known as possible. Okay, Deacons Meyer Lansky was also a Jewish man, which was at that time kind of seen like, well, all these gangsters are Italians. What's this Jewish guy trying to do? And people like Luciano, Bugsy Siegel, you know, they saw him as like, yeah, this guy is the real deal. He really is. Even though he's not Italian, yeah, this guy's good. Okay. He and Luciano developed a crime syndicate. Okay. He was a big part of that. Even though his name was not synonymous with it, he did so many things. One, again, working with Luciano, the crime syndicate. The other thing is, um, he and Bugsy Siegel created that murder for hire group I told you about that killed Dutch Schultz. They're the ones who created it. It's called Murder Inc. Okay. Um, and now the thing is, Meyer Lansky actually did go to jail, but only one time for 2 months for gambling. That's all the FBI and all these other authority figures could get on him. They couldn't get him for murder. They couldn't get him for racketeering. They couldn't get him for tax evasion. They couldn't get him on a lot of things because, again, he was too smart and he knew how to keep himself in the background. He's like, yeah, let Bugsy Siegel, let Al Capone, let all these other guys who want to be flashy, want to be known, want to be all this stuff. Go ahead, do your thing. I'm going to be back here in the shadows. I'm going to be back here doing what I'm doing. I'll be making my money. You know, you can have the fame, you can have all that glory. As long as I'm making my money, I'm good. So the next guy is very interesting because if you notice, all the people we've talked about so far have been white people, white or Jewish, things like that. And Ellsworth Bumpy Johnson is a black man. Excuse me. Now, the thing is, this was really unheard of at the time. Like, how can this a crime boss be a black man? Because again, excuse me, I'm so sorry. It just wasn't heard of. Bobby Johnson was born in 1905 and he died in 1968. He was the mafia boss of Harlem. Okay. Now, as a teenager, he caught the eye of this guy named Bub Hewlett. Okay. Bub Hewlett was, in a sense, kind of a mafia person, but not in quote unquote the mafia. Harlem had their own little group, you know. And Hewlett basically looked at Bobby Johnson and said, "Okay, you know what? You could be my bodyguard." So that's what he did for a while. But Bobby Johnson was caught and arrested for gambling, or sorry, burglary and pimping. Okay, so he spent about 10 years in jail. But when he returned out of Harlem, the Great Depression had hit, and he was like, "What in the world going on here?" He had all he could hear was from what he heard in jail, which wasn't much about what's going on and things like that. Now, once he got out, he started working for this lady called Stephanie St. Clair as her bodyguard. Okay, now St. Clair is this lady, she ran the numbers in Harlem and stuff like that. Um, Again, it wasn't part of the mafia, but it was still like the Harlem form of mafia. Now, he helped fight off crime bosses because a lot of these crime bosses looked in Harlem and said, you know what, we can make money there. So they tried to invade, and he helped fight them off. But the thing is, eventually they did lose it. Now, Stephanie St. Clair basically handed over power to Bumpy Johnson, saying, "Look, I can't do this anymore. You you've been there, you've seen how everything works. You're a smart man. You handle this." So he did, and he did the smartest thing possible. Instead of standing up and going, "I'm going to take all you guys on. Oh yeah, you think you come in here, all that tough talk crap." He was like, "No, no, 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 no." So what he did was he said, "Okay, I want to have a meeting with Luciano." Luciano and the crime syndicate, they meet up with him, and he's like, "Okay, I'll tell you what, we'll work with you guys. But the thing is, you have to understand, Harlem is all black." He goes, if there's some Italian guys coming around thinking they own this place, stuff like that, there's gonna be trouble. And it's gonna be trouble for you guys, you know. But I'll tell you what, let us run as an independent operation group. Let us handle Harlem, and we will give you a piece of the profit that we make. And whether it's gambling, whether it's pimping, whether it's prostitution, whether it's the numbers, whatever it may be, we will give you part of the profit, but you got to stay out of here. Because if one of your people come through here thinking you own this place, our people will knock them out and or do something bad to them. Luciano listens to him and goes, "You make a lot of sense. Okay, just make sure the money's here on time." And Bumpy Johnson did. And that's the way they were able to be free from the mafia rule, but still be under their umbrella. So if there was something that happening at Harlem, they needed protection, they could always go to Luciano, say, hey, we'll pay you for whatever services you can provide us to get rid of these law enforcement, to do this and that. They would just have to pay instead of doing it themselves and things like that. Okay? So very smart man. Again, a lot of people did not know who he was because again, he was a background person. The next guy is Francesco Castiala. I'll probably kill that last name, but he's more known as his other name, Frank Costello. Frank Costello was born in 1891 and died in 1973. He was a bootlegger. Okay, he operated gambling sites in several states, not just one, like most of them, just in New York or New Jersey or something like that. No, he was everywhere. Um, when Luciano came to power, Costello was his right hand man. He knew he could trust Costello. He knew if something needed to be done, he could go to Costello and go, "Hey, can you do this and that?" Costello would be like, "Gotcha, dude, no problem." He, Costello, had so many political ties, it was ridiculous. He had judges, cops, district attorney, politicians, city officials, all kinds of people who make laws, who are going to enforce things, who are going to, like, oh, we're going to attack this place, blah, blah, blah. He had them in his pocket. He had them on the payroll. He was paying them monthly to basically get information, to stop them from doing things, stuff like that. He had them in his pocket. So for years and years and years, Frank Costello was basically um, untouchable. Okay, he really was. He just knew so many people, and whenever these mafia bosses or people were in trouble, they could go to Costello, and Costello would be like, "Yeah, I can help you, but there's a price, but I can help you." Yeah, depends on what the problem is, things like that, and where it happened. So yeah. Now he survived an assassination attempt, and just like Meyer Lansky, he was very fortunate that he actually got to live to see an old age. And the person who tried to kill him, he actually forgave them. Told him, "Yeah, good shot. Missed though, but yeah, yeah, I forgive you. It's business, not personal, type of thing." Heck no, someone shot at me. Shh. All right, so the next person we're going to talk about is Umberto Albert Anastasia. This dude, oh my God, this guy was a killer. 1902 to 1957, he was a hitman and one of the founders of Monster Inc. All right. And I say he was a killer, I really mean it. He was a legitimate killer, a cold, calculated killer. He is responsible for the deaths of hundreds of people. Okay, he was charged 3 times for murder, but the thing is, every time the thing was going to go to trial, witnesses either disappeared completely or refused to testify all of a sudden, and nobody knows why. These people all of a sudden just decided, yeah, I'm not going to talk. I'm not going to say nothing. Okay. Now, here's the thing. Anastasia basically felt like, no one's going to touch me. He was a killer, tough man. But he was gunned down by an underboss who wanted to control the Anastasia family. And that's what happens. You live by the sword, you die by the sword. Okay. The next guy is very, very interesting. His name was Arnold Rothenstein, aka the Big Fix, or Mr. Big, aka the Fixer. He was born in 1882 and died in 1928. He was known as the Brain. Okay, so I should tell you how people saw him. He committed racketeering, bootlegging, and gambling. Now, here's the thing. He was a kingpin of the Jewish mob, and his claim to fame was that it was said that he fixed the 1919 World Series, which became known as the Black Sox scandal. Okay. Um, and the thing is, a lot of baseball players at that time were seen as like, you guys, man, you guys suck. It put a big stain on baseball for a long time. You know, up until Babe Ruth came. Um, because the thing is, people were like, these guys have no heart. They'll take money, you know, and it's all because of him, Rodenstein. So what happened was also too, he lost a lot of money in high stake poker matches, you know. Um, and the thing is, he basically in the game was rigged. He's like, there's no way I could have lost, you know. Oh, these dealers had cards in their hand. There was some type of messages going on. So he says, I'm not going to pay. Yeah, I lost, but you guys probably cheated me, so I'm not going to pay. And they're like, oh, okay, well, right. Well, a couple weeks later, he was shot and killed. So the man they called the brain, the big fixer, and all that stuff died because he felt he was cheated in cards. If that's not the dumbest way someone would die or the reason for it, I don't know what is. So, of all the gangsters mentioned from Capone, Luciano, the Bonnie and Clyde, Dillinger, all the way down to, you know, right now with Anastasia and, you know, the Mr. Big and all that, who do you think was the most dangerous one and why? So do you think it was more of the flashy people or the quiet ones? Which, you know, do you think it's the mafia people or do you think it was the Depression era people? You know, which of these gangsters and thieves would you say was the most dangerous? Okay, so pick one person out of the whole group who you would say this is the most dangerous person of them all. Okay. So once you've finished this, you are done for this extra credit assignment. Okay. So hopefully you learned something new. Hopefully you enjoyed it. This is one that my students last year um, did enjoy because they were like, they never heard of most of these guys. But when they told their uh, like older brothers and some of them, they're like, oh yeah, yeah, I heard about so and so. Oh yeah, this and that. You know, or some of them just heard about Bonnie and Clyde. They didn't know about Babyface Nelson and, you know, Machine Gun Kelly and things like that. So hopefully you did enjoy it. Hopefully you learned something new. So you guys take care, you be safe, and I'll see you later, all right?